All I know is I need Hugh Howey to make another book right now. I've heard he's coming out with a fourth book. I need it now, Hugh Howey. I'm going insane. Hi friends, my name is Miranda. Welcome back to my universe. Today I have a big video for you. Better buckle up. I just finished Dust by Hugh Howey, which is the third book in the Silo series. The first book being Wool, second being Shift, and then of course there's Dust. I will be spoiling a lot in this video, so if you wanted no spoilers, I'm so sorry. Maybe next time. This one, I will be covering most of what happens in the series. I will not be diving deep into Shift at all because I do have an entire video just based on that book. So if you would like a deep dive into the history of the silos, I would recommend watching that video. This video is mainly for talking about the last book, talking about the ending of this series, my overall thoughts and feelings, how I felt the last book rolled, what it talked about, if I enjoyed it, and going over just the series as a whole. So we have a lot to cover. Just as a reminder of what happened at the end of Shift. So at the end of Shift, Juliet makes it back to Silo 18 from Silo 17. She promises Jimmy and all of the kids in Silo 17 that she will be back to save them, and she moves on to Silo 18. She is made the mayor of Silo 18 as well. Back in Silo 1, we're following around Donald, and he woke up his sister Charlotte from the deep freeze. They both are now in hiding. He is no longer known as the head of the silo. He was impersonating Thurman for a while there, but now he's in hiding. In Shift, he also had shot Anna, who is Thurman's daughter, as well as Thurman, while they were in their cryopods. So that's a little bit of an overview of what we're going into in Dust. We pick up right where Shift leaves off. The very first chapter is a conversation between Donald and Lucas. So Donald is talking to Lucas, basically saying, whatever your mayor is doing, we can feel it in our silo and you need to stop her from whatever she's doing. And Lucas is basically telling him, no, I'm not going to stop her. Now, what Juliet is doing is she had discovered a digger at the bottom of their silo, and due to her promise to Jimmy, she is determined to dig over to Silo 17 to save the people that are still surviving over there. Donald, back in Silo 1, is against that, but at the same time, he is trying to tell them and let them know of the extent of what is out there. He just doesn't know how to say it. Donald is slowly going insane. He has been coughing up blood for months now. He is slowly dying, and Charlotte is aware of it. And the isolation also is really getting to both of them, but mainly Donald. He acts very stir crazy. He talks to himself a lot. He paces a lot. So Charlotte is generally worried about him, and she doesn't know how to be independent. She is extremely dependent on Donald because she has no access to any other levels of the silo. Women are forbidden in Silo 1, so if she is ever spotted, most likely they will kill her. So Charlotte is in a pretty sticky predicament, and it becomes even stickier when they are visited on their level that is supposed to be only accessible by specific security personnel. Charlotte is able to hide in time, however, Donald is mumbling to himself, talking to himself, pacing in another room, and doesn't hear Charlotte's warning, and so Donald is caught by these people. Accompanying the group of people is Thurman, who we come to find out Donald did not kill. I was under the impression that Thurman died, so this was definitely a shock to me. Thurman ended up finding Donald, and he beat him half to death with all the rest of the men there. Charlotte saw it. She saw the whole thing while she was in hiding, and then they dragged Donald back up to a different level in the silo, and Charlotte had no idea where he went. So Charlotte is left utterly alone with no idea what she is supposed to do or should do about the situation. This then pans us back to Silo 18, who made it successfully over to Silo 17 via the digger digging underground. A ushered Solo and the other children, Hannah, Elise, the twins, all of those people back into Silo 18. So they were successful in that mission. The biggest thing that happens here is that Thurman discovers what Donald has been doing. Thurman realizes that Donald has been contacting Silo 18, and so Thurman himself calls and talks to Lucas. He asks Lucas if he can speak to the head of their silo. Lucas says, "I am the head of the silo." And Thurman says, "No, you're not. Bernard is." So now Lucas has a oh shoot moment because Bernard is dead and Thurman doesn't realize this. And so Lucas tries to come up with a plan to try to get someone else to impersonate Bernard, but no matter what he tries, it doesn't work. And Thurman says, "I'm sorry, I'm going to have to shut you down," or however he says that. He ends up shutting down Silo 18, which results in this gas pouring all throughout the silo, killing anybody who breathes it in. I did want to note very quickly that the gas that was used in Silo 18 is different than the gas that was used in Silo 17 to gas people out. However, more on that later. So now Silo 18 is absolute chaos. Juliet starts ushering people through the tunnel back into 17, basically saying, "We need to get out of here." A lot of people, however, are stuck in the upper levels and they unfortunately end up dying. Lucas is stuck in the same room that Solo, aka Jimmy, was in Silo 17 all those years past. And he wants to hear Juliet's voice one last time, so he actually walks back out into the gas to radio Juliet and to tell her that he loves her. And then he dies in the room. He could have chosen to survive a little bit longer if he locked himself away in the bunker, but he didn't. He chose to say goodbye to Juliet. So now Juliet and very few others are now trapped in Silo 17. They cannot go back to Silo 18 because that is where the bad air is. And this is when Juliet radios back to talk to Charlotte. So let's go back to Charlotte. What has Charlotte been doing in Silo 1 all by herself? She has been up to mischief. Let me tell you, I gained so much respect for Charlotte. She ends up dressing herself up in a men's costume, or a men's uniform, really, not a costume. She ends up going up to one of the levels, basically saying, "Hey, I was called here to fix a radiator or fix a machine," whatever it was, whatever excuse she BS'd, right? She ends up getting into one of the server rooms and she takes a radio and she tells the man in the room that she will fix it and be back with it. And he lets her run off with it. But while she is trying to get the radio back into the elevator to take down to her level, she is stopped by a man, and the man recognizes that she is not a man and that she is a woman. And so he starts to attack her. She defends herself. He's like choking her, trying to kill her. In her defense, she grabs a screwdriver, bam, right in the man's neck. Charlotte, I mean, I'm impressed. So Charlotte takes the radio back to the level that her and Donald had all to themselves. She sets up the radio and tries to contact Silo 18 or 17. She goes to both of their channels. Now, of course, because Silo 18 is gassed out now, she can't access Juliet there. However, Juliet reaches her in Silo 17. So at this point, Juliet is enraged. She basically accuses Charlotte of killing her people in Silo 18. At this point, of course, Charlotte had no idea that Thurman did that, and so she is trying to explain to Juliet that no, it is Thurman. Thurman is the man who created all of this, who created the silos. Donald was only helping him without even realizing what he was doing. And so she finally convinces Juliet that Charlotte is good, that she was not behind all of this. And Charlotte is trying to explain to Juliet what is happening. But as she is talking to Juliet, a man discovers her, and this man's name is Darcy. Now, Darcy was assigned to figure out who killed the man in the hallway, which of course we know was Charlotte with the screwdriver. So Darcy takes blood samples, puts them in the computer, finds not a name, but random numbers. He puts the random numbers in more computers to try to figure out who it was, but it takes him to a pretty secure level of the deep freeze. He goes into the deep freeze and sees that one of the cells is empty. This cell was Charlotte's cell. However, there is no name on it, just the same numbers that he found through the blood sample. Because of all of this, he figures out where she could possibly be hiding because she is high up in security. It leads him to that one level where, of course, Charlotte had been hiding. He finds her, holds her at gunpoint, tells her to back away from the radio where she is talking to Juliet. Turns out Darcy is actually just looking for answers at this point. Once he realizes that Charlotte is a woman, he's thinking, okay, who woke you up? How are you here? He's asking a bunch of questions, which works for Charlotte's benefit. Charlotte ends up showing him the drones, showing him outside what is out there. And Darcy is now on Charlotte and Donald's team. So then Darcy helps out Charlotte. They actually end up breaking Donald out of his cell that they were holding him in. And all three of them escape back to the level. They're trying to create a plan for how they can escape. While all this is happening, we have Juliet is trying to plan out how she can get these people to get out of the silo. She finds out via diagrams and via her conversation with Charlotte that there's a specific location that is called SEED, seed. They don't know if it's an acronym for something or if that's just what the building is called, but she has no idea what that actually is. So now she is wanting to figure out how to get there. Well, she ends up saying this whole speech, right? Talking to her people in Silo 17, basically telling them, you have a choice. We can either sit here, you can either sit here in Silo 17 and continue ravaging the gardens that are here, ravaging all of the supplies until there's nothing left, or we can go out and try to find a better world for ourselves. She ends up convincing a lot of the people to join her, and they gather as many suits as they can, as many helmets as they can. Basically, it's the cleaning outfits, and they set it up to all eventually leave Silo 17. This journey ends up being successful. They find the building called Seed, and it is full of supplies for them. It's full of seeds of plants, it's full of equipment, various items that can help them survive and cultivate crops and live on their own out there. And so that kind of shows us also a little bit more of the plan of Thurman, because why would Thurman plant a building like that? But more on that later. Let's go back to Charlotte and Donald and our friend Darcy, our new friend Darcy. They make this plan that they will walk out as well. Unbeknownst to Darcy and Charlotte, Donald has a whole different idea. He creates this bomb that he will set off eventually. He holds his sister basically at gunpoint across the room and says, you are going to go outside with Darcy, and I am going to go see Thurman. So Donald makes it into the elevator, and Charlotte and Darcy get their suits on. Charlotte is sobbing at this point, right? Because her brother is now going to his death. But she makes it out with Darcy, and they start walking. And while they are walking out of the silo and they're walking up the slope, Silo 1 explodes. And what had happened is Donald went to the level that Thurman was at and set off the bomb. He actually almost didn't get to detonate the bomb because Thurman had found him and kicked him down, and the bomb flew out of his hands. At this point, I was so enraged with Thurman. Like, Thurman, the thought of Thurman disgusts me. I digress. So the bomb flew out of his hands, and he, instead of shooting Thurman, shoots the bomb, and everything explodes. Silo 1 is now collapsed. There is no more Silo 1, which we will get to later on as well, because that is a huge point that is very important. So now back to Juliet and all the people of Silo 18/17. They have been looking through this building that holds all these supplies. They're creating a plan, trying to figure it out, when all of a sudden they see a body climbing over one of the nearest hills. Juliet ends up running to meet the person and is like, oh my gosh, what if they're from my silo? They changed their mind. They wanted to join us. Well, the helmet comes off and she realizes that it is not someone from her silo, and Charlotte introduces herself and says, I am Charlotte. I'm from Silo 1. Yeah, that is, for the most part, the end of the Silo series. So I will first go over Dust and just Dust in general, what my feelings were, all of that good stuff. I will say, overall, I am teetering between a 4 and a 5 star. I really liked this book a lot. I do think, now looking back on it, not a whole lot happened. I literally explained it all in like, what, 10, 15 minutes? Whereas Shift took me an entire 35 minutes to explain, right? So there was not a lot that happened in Dust. It was a weird like in between of some parts dragged and some parts were just so fast. The end of the book was so fast. I really wanted to see more. I almost wish that Hugh Howey explored more of Silo 1. The destruction of Silo 1 is huge. And in the book, he doesn't really talk about it. But if you think about it, Silo 1 being destroyed means that all of the other silos are free. They are no longer under anyone's control. Each of the silo heads had to report to Silo 1, but without a Silo 1 to report to, that gives them freedom to do whatever they want to. I've heard that there's a 4th book being written right now, that Hugh Howey is working on expanding the universe. So that's really exciting. I think that there is a lot left that he can do with this series. So I'm excited about that overall. But back to Dust in the review. I'm getting ahead of myself. The plot was just iffy. There were really good things that had happened throughout the book. It was nothing like Shift, though. Shift was amazing, and so was Wool. I really enjoyed both of them, and so Dust was just lacking a little bit. The pacing was very awkward to me, slow but fast at certain points. I did enjoy the characters that were introduced in this book. However, there were some that I found pointless. He went on this whole exploration of religion in the silos and what the priests were doing, and it was almost like a cult was being formed in Silo 17 once Silo 18 moved over. Though it was interesting, it almost felt pointless to me, because at the end of the day, nothing came about that. I do like the idea of a cult being formed in that environment, right? Because that is people trying to find hope, but then that hope becomes twisted. So I like the fact that Hugh Howey tried to explore that. But to me, it would have made more sense if that then leaked into more of the story. But it literally felt thrown in there, and it was just a little chunk of the book, and then it was never talked about again. So I don't know. It was strange to me. But besides all of that, I do really like the plot of this book and the characters. I think I'll give it a solid 4.5. I might give it a 5-star rating in Goodreads just for the sake of it, because I overall love this series so much. I also wanted to go over what I had mentioned before about the gas in Silo 18 versus Silo 17. And all of this draws back to the nanobots that Thurman had created. A lot of conversations about this series that I see online are a lot of confusion from various people asking questions about the nanobots and about how there was only death and destruction around the silos, what happened to the rest of the world, and things like that. So I actually did my own research and I was looking on Hugh Howey's website, and he actually has a lot of questions answered regarding this. And so I wanted to kind of share a little bit about what I had learned, but also what actually had happened in the series. Back to Anna in Shift. Anna messed with a ton of her father's plans. And what she had done is when Silo 17 was destroyed, she switched the gases. So what usually happens to the silos when they are shut down is they put this poison into the air. But what the poison actually is are these tiny machines that are created to kill people. Hugh Howey has confirmed that what the nanobots target is species. So the species they target is humans. Therefore, all of this being said, the rest of the world was eradicated. There is no people on the earth except for the people in the silos. And what Thurman's whole plan with this was to eventually allow one of the silos to rise back up and get back out in the world and repopulate. That is why in Dust also we go over what the machines are doing, how the lottery works, all of that good stuff, all the nitty gritty of the details of how they use population control and what silo will actually end up surviving. Because we find out in this series that only one silo will survive after, I think it was 250 years, that there was a humanity reset, I believe is what they called it. And so all of the silos were built to be destroyed, but at the end of 250 years, all the other silos would be destroyed, and that last silo would have the chance to get out of their silo and find the seed building, which, of course, Silo 18 ended up finding. But for that all to even happen, Thurman uses the nanobots. So he also had made healing nanobots, which are the exact same except they heal people, which is how he has been able to survive literally hundreds of years. And we come to find out that is how all the people sleeping in the deep freeze end up surviving, because they are being fed these healing nanobots that heal the bodies and allow the people to survive for a really long amount of time. So kind of a lot of stuff going on, but Anna had switched the nanobots in Silo 17 so that it was the healing ones that went out instead of the killing ones, basically. There's a little bit of an exploration of this at the very end of Dust, where Juliet and her father have a conversation about it, because all the bodies at the top of Silo 17 haven't decayed, and Juliet doesn't really think much about this, but her father, being a doctor, does. He tells Juliet, these bodies should be bones. They are acting like they only died weeks ago instead of years and years ago. So they know that something's wrong, but they don't exactly figure out why or how. But that is what makes Silo 17 different. That is how Jimmy did not die when he breathed in the gas back in Shift. So Silo 17's people were able to survive. Jimmy was good, the kids were good, and everybody who went into Silo 17 never ended up dying.
Hi, Editing Miranda here. I did want to mention that, of course, the people still died in Silo 17 because they ran to the top of their silo. Everybody who breathed in the outside air, right, once the vault was opened and they were free to escape, they were breathing in the bad nanobots because those are attracted to the argon that's in the chambers. So that's how the people at the top of the silo died. But everybody else who only breathed in the gas were able to survive because they didn't get the bad nanobots. I hope this helps clear things up.
But alongside this, Hugh Howey did say that the nanobots were designed to stay within a specific radius. Of course, before the silos were actually a thing, they ended up killing everybody because they spread with people. But once all the people died, the other nanobots passed away as well. So then all these nanobots are being fed from the argon that is pushed into the vaults, into the chambers once people clean, which is why the nanobots then attack the people that are there. That was the whole piece of the argon. The argon feeds the nanobots. The argon is what is being sent in to clean the chambers before the people are sent out to clean in each of the silos, which is then why they are so condensed over the silos and they don't really spread out to the rest of the world anymore. But overall, I was really happy with this series and this book. I love this series. And I am genuinely happy with the way that this ended. I do hope that he expands this universe more, that we learn more about the other silos. There is so much potential for this series and for everything else that Hugh Howey writes. Overall, I'm really hopeful and optimistic on where this series can go. I love the silo. My heart is in this series, and it genuinely is probably one of my favorite series that I have read. I do highly recommend it if you haven't read it. I know now you know everything that happens, but it is so different reading it. You really feel immersed in this series, and man, oh man, it is claustrophobic. I am obsessed. Those are my overall thoughts on both Dust and the Silo series as a whole. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any other comments, concerns, questions, please comment them down below. I would love to talk about this series further with you. Thank you so much for sticking around for this long and for supporting me. Please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe if you would like more content from me. As always, I love you so, so much. Please be safe, make good choices, and I definitely will see you next time. Bye!